And welcome everyone. Welcome. Welcome to a live stream which will contain a presentation of sorts to start with, followed by a section of Q&A. So let's get right to it. Supply chain commentary. Where should I get my miners? We are looking to get them from a variety of places, and it would be helpful to get some information around that. So if you're still in the hunt for a miner, which more than likely you are, or you're waiting for your miner, let's look at the different places that you can order. Just give me a sound out in the comments if you can hear me, and you can hear me okay. Everything looks to be coming through okay. All right. So let's go over to, I remember I showed this last time. It's been sorted a little bit more. You can see the ones that are already out are at the top here, except for this. It's been sorted differently in like, I don't know, the last 30 minutes or something like that. This was sorted differently. So interesting. Anyways, you can look through this at your leisure, but I wanted to keep showing this because this is the most important information. If you're like, man, where do I get a miner from? I would definitely recommend coming in here and looking at these, especially the ones that are up and coming, as they will more than likely be able to jump the gun. Who knows? We don't really have a definitive time frame, but they definitely got to get through this phase to start with. So, and then the Manufacturing Oversight Committee. So, and it shows the next meeting is July 28th. So it's going to be a bit here. So you can know month to month when this is going to happen. So let's get to Bobcats. They had a really interesting statement here. So this is on their website, and I really like how forward they've been with all this information. Just in just honest truth, it's not even like trying to, beat around the bush or something like that. So from this, though, you can see that they have changed locations. So they were shipping from Wuhan, and now they're shipping from Shenzhen. So that will improve delivery time. So if I remember right, when I originally was getting the miners from Bobcat for the People's Hotspot and then my own demo one, it was stuck for like weeks in this interim period where it was, like maybe I think it was the DHL. DHL had the shipping information, but it wasn't moving forward. So it was really strange that I couldn't get this information and where it was. It was just hanging out. So it hung out there for, I don't know, a couple weeks. And I finally was like, oh, what's going on with this? And they said, oh, it's waiting with the courier to be picked up. So a courier was having to move it from Shenzhen from Wuhan to Shenzhen. So that was what was taking so long to do that. And then it would get shipped overseas. So now that they've moved the factory, now they're able to ship out a little bit faster, which is cool. So they did say that there was this huge spike. Now they did make some forward announcements on this, but they said on April 29th, they made an announcement that the lead times would be changing. And so a bunch of people just put in a bunch of orders to try and dodge that 12 to 20 week lead time. So now they're saying that like the tail end of it, they're going to push really hard to try and make that delivery, but it's definitely going to be on the tail end of the lead time. So that 12 to 20 week lead time. And they've been honest about this from the get-go about this, that it was getting longer. So they were just entering that kind of in-between period. Another thing to note in here is they talk about the COVID outbreak in Malaysia. So in the US, we don't get a lot of information on this. So this is kind of helpful information that COVID breaks out, and then that affects the supply chain and ripples through. So that's why you might be seeing a lot less uncertainty around the headlines and from the different manufacturers in the community. So so here they break down some really important questions, where it's going to go and what batch you're going to be in, tracking numbers. So I really recommend this. I will put this in the notes afterwards. I didn't get it in the description beforehand, so I apologize for that, but I will drop this in the notes. Let's take a look at some others. Syncrobit, they did their FCC testing and reports are done. So the filing is the official thing, and that's expected in 7 to 10 days. So this allows them to actually ship their product. So I know a lot of people have been anxious and downright frustrated about this, and I'm sure that even the staff there are very frustrated with it as well. But they've been working hard to with the FCC lab to make sure that there were revisions. So probably they found something and had to remediate it. So that's part of doing something new. So you make mistakes. As long as you're learning and you're demonstrating that learning, then you really can't fault them. I mean, we're all kind of new in this too. So, and these manufacturers, it's not every day that we're just building a wireless network, right? Especially decentralized way. So this is something new, but I mean, imagine what we could do if we could get really good at this. And there was just a better way to deploy things in a decentralized way. That's just going to be awesome for getting things done really quickly. So we are learning as humanity here. All right. So for Nebra, let's see if I have the update from them. I had one queued up, but I don't know where my tab went. So Nebra basically has said that their outdoor enclosure is approaching certification. And then as of June 22nd, I saw that batch 2 is shipping. So we should start seeing more coming online soon. So no word yet on resuming orders, unfortunately. Let's see here for some other ones. Rack is still shipping. In fact, I saw a tweet from them that they're shipping out, I think it was 10,000 here soon. And then, but as far as CalChip is concerned, it looks like they're only offering Curlink for sale at this time. SenseCap, see if I can get this one right. Of course, I am missing my tab there as well. Shoot. Well, I'll try and improve for the next time around. That's too bad. So anyways, it just says coming soon. It's a big page that just says coming soon. So that's all. There's no details. That's here. There's my link. There we go. That's what it says. Woo. All right. So I'm looking forward to more information on this. This is going to be interesting because this is the next one that's kind of the farthest along in the process. So be watching for them. Long AP. Now I did some hunting in the Discord and looked around a bit in their pins and stuff. And it seems like things went really sideways. They had a bug in their Shopify setup that caused over 10 times the orders that were. So if they had say that they were going to make 100 miners, they took 1,000 orders. And that's just an example. I don't know how many orders they did, but so it was 10x over what they were intending. And so they had to sort through all that. And there was orders that came in via crypto and regular payments and all that kind of stuff. And so it was just a huge cluster, and it sounds like they're working through it, but people were downright angry, lots and lots of frustration. Since it's not for the US, it's been a little bit calmer over here, but that there's been some huge frustration over that. And that's the tough part. I go back to my earlier statement. We're learning how to do this as a community, and I think that Helium is working harder and has improved and iterated upon their process for onboarding miners. So that is the process there. Now there are some other miners that I wanted to talk about. And these I just saw on Twitter, and I didn't pull up all the websites for it. One is ClodPy. Another one that I actually got messaged about this week on Discord was, hey, have you heard of RevoFi? And I'm like, nope. And I think I remember reading something somewhere that they had to rename this product because they weren't comfortable with, because I think they were going off of Revolution here. And so they had to rename the product to RevoFi to be a little bit more okay with things, because they didn't want to make it sound like they were doing something political. So so this one is interesting though. You can earn an additional token from, there's HNT mining, but then there's this RVS, and I'm trying to find some more information on it, and I could not find as much information. So that is kind of the status of that. All right, more miners that are coming up here. FreedomFi, that will also function as a Helium hotspot plus the 5G data forwarding. So just something to keep aware of there. I know that it was a big Helium announcement, so we'll just have to stand by for more announcements from them. Yours truly is in line, so we'll get some word when we get some word, I guess. I have a feeling it's pure speculation. Just things are cooking there, and it's more so on the NDA level right now. But I don't have any information to verify that. It's just a hunch. So some other ones that I saw this week are Pisces, COTX, Browen, and Dragino. Now, I'm not sure if that's the same one that Parley Labs sells, but I did see Simon. Simon attends these live streams every so often, and he was rocking a picture of that on his Twitter feed, I believe. So that was, and I think that he was even working with a solar setup. So go ahead and check out his channel as well. Yeah, so that's it for where to get miners. That's the long time. I see the question, is FreedomFi still scheduled for September? I haven't not seen any more information about delivery dates. As far as I know, they are still on target. So I have encountered about like this much information that was even more so of confidential nature. Of like, I once in a while I get some confidential stuff, and so I appreciate knowing that so that I can prep a little bit more for it. But by and large, I still am pretty much kept out of the loop of most things. So, yeah. So I don't know is the official answer. And I think from looking at dates, that was the last date I saw anyways. So no super secrets here to share, unfortunately. Although if I could, then I'd probably be bound by some documentation too. So anyways, all right, well, let's keep going. Support issues. What's been the predominant support issue since the last live stream? Most of the questions that are like legit are around relayed. Just people not been able to figure out how to set up port forwarding on their routers. A lot of times it's just the brand of routers that or particularly that one, or they get to the point where they have to enter in the internal and the external ports, and they don't know that it's both 44158 on both of them. So that's been confusing for people. The other huge support issue that has been, and I'm sure that everybody sees this and is aware of it, is just earnings have been like in the dumpster of late, and that has been all the way across. Occasionally I see one, from a host that has been working pretty well, but by and large everybody's like messaging me and asking me what's going on. Did I do something wrong? And I'm having to tell them all, because they're not paying attention to all this, and so I'm having to tell them all, you're doing everything right. It's the network. It's been having a lot of issues, and of course validators are, I think in this time, they're probably still experimenting with the results and trying to run things in parallel to make sure that everything's running well. Mainnet is live, so that's an exciting thing. So I think it's just I don't know. And again, it's more of my theory on this, is that they're trying to run those in parallel and then find some way to tip the scale over to full on the validator side. So, yeah, that's been the big thing, is just stepping through those, reassuring people, nope, it's earnings everywhere. Now, there have been a couple funny things, and one of them we will take a look at here today. And actually, I don't know the answer, so I'm going to tap this whole everybody attending for help on it, because it's a conundrum that I see I've seen more than one instance of it. So that is the interesting thing there, and we'll get to that just a little bit sooner, actually, rather than later. YouTube commentary. What have the comments been like lately? I had great feedback, so thank you all for giving me the feedback that the mic volume was too low. That was due to a new computer, and so I tweaked the settings for this week, and then I tested it back to myself, and I think we're good to go. Feel free to give me more feedback as we go along here. I probably won't tweak it midstream because everybody's probably already fine-tuned their headsets or whatever for this, so I'll keep it tight for next time. So then just give me some feedback for next time. There were a couple questions if I'm available to consult on a particular setup. And when questions are asked, I usually point back to a video that would help, or give them a kind of a one-liner. Like if there's a longer partnership that would be, in there, maybe I'd consider it. But by and large, most of the answers are on my YouTube videos and available by a quick question. And then there's also like plain, I don't know. So I am definitely not an expert in all things, but I'll throw that around too if I can't help you. And I wouldn't want to get paid unless I knew the answer. So, but I am considering putting a wallet address out there for people to drop some HNT into if they would be so inclined. So I'll throw that out as an idea. If there was a wallet out there that I gave the address to, would you be willing or interested in throwing me some HNT? Comment below. I'll have some stuff on that later too, but throw something in the comment or throw in the comments later if you're watching this later. So it's not a demand by any means. It's just a, hey, what is this going to work? Would you throw me anything there? So yeah. All right. Next up, the people's hotspot. Where are they and how have they been doing? Some exciting news that I'll save for the end here. But let's start out with the easiest one. Funny Gray Seal is en route to Florida right now. And yeah, unfortunately, the previous host paid for 2-day shipping, and then I think it got out on Thursday or Friday, and it should have been there maybe on Saturday, but for some reason, it's going to be delivered tomorrow. So I purposely don't assert the new location until it's actually in the new host's hands, so that we make sure that nobody's standing by on the doorstep waiting to open a miner. Yeah. So another one, Digital Lava Dragon. So the one I talked about this earlier, earnings tanked when the network was having issues. So the host thought it was their fault. And I'm willing to enter into that conversation for sure. 'Cause we have a little group too that we talk with each other about different things too. So that's fun. But we ran the discovery mode and we got 5 responses almost right away within maybe the first minute to 2 minutes. So that was good. That was exactly what we were expecting. And so it was kind of like, oh, dang it. I was hoping that was the thing, that the antenna got messed up or something like that. Nope, all good. So it was actually nice to see that discovery mode worked, even though that the network was having a lot of problems. The blockchain halted and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's it for the Dragon. So PewDiePecan Eel, that's the interesting one that I wanted to get into this week. And this is the one where I need all of your help on. So let's take a look at that. Let me switch over to my desktop here. And so here's PewDiePecan Eel. Now it got to Colorado Springs and is set up. But there's this interesting situation here, so great. We got one witness already. It's all fully synced and mining. It is relayed. So maybe that has something to do with this. I don't think so though, because the score is 0.5. Now, if you don't know what this is basically meaning that they are too close in proximity to each other. So I'm trying to figure out what this means. Now I think that this host is running the stock antenna. I could be wrong, but I'll double check with them later. But this is interesting because, you look at 1 kilometer here, and if I zoom in a little bit more, yeah, so now we have 500 meters. So we know that the distance is 300 to 350 meters is the recommended. Well, we're at 500 meters, and this is comparatively, I don't know. It still looks a kilometer away. So I mean, there's 2 kilometers between these spots, at least 2 to 4. 1 kilometer, 1 kilometer between each of them. So this is a case where what's going on here? This seems weird that this is by all means should be getting a score of 1. So looking over at Helium Place, you know, this has another interesting format to it to show you the red area. Well, yeah, if you get into the red area, then definitely you're going to want to, or you're going to run into problems. Now, the only thing I can think of here is that that there was a previous miner here, and that it just took a day and a half for the previous miner to come off. See Mythical Azure Oyster. Well, that's not there anymore, and so. Maybe that's the case. So we can watch for a little bit more, but I've seen this happen a number of times. So one case is there was a miner there previously that the people's hotspot replaced. But I've seen, like I said, I've seen another instance where like this, just outside the zone of this, you know, what do they call it? The sweet spot. And yet it's still affecting score. And that's really interesting. So a couple people have messaged me about this and have said, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Are you seeing this? And I'm like, yeah, I don't have a good explanation for this. So I wanted to switch back to the comments here. And there is a comment that says it's the RSSI and SNR. Use Helium Vision and look in the terrain. Is it a valley or hill? Is there a building blocking the signal, etc.? Interesting thoughts. So the RSSI and SNR values factor into the calculation for that proximity score. I didn't think that did it. I thought it was purely on the distance, but maybe this is some new kind of stuff coming up soon. So yeah, so the first answer here is I think that we'll see what happens. Another day goes by, day or 2 at the max, and then see if, because there was another miner there previously, that maybe that's just affecting it, and it just takes a day and a half to fall off the range. But the other part there is like, what more is going on? I don't know. And if there was some weird reason where the hexes lined up, then that they were on a border and somehow ended up being in the other one, and it was a matter of a couple meters, you know, maybe it would be worth another assertion to move that a little bit, because this host does live in, I think, an apartment building, so maybe we could play with that a little bit. I don't know where the miner is exactly in the apartment building, but that would be something to play with as well, if that would help improve that location a little bit. And you know, Helium did roll out a change that you can see in the app now, where you can't see the miners' locations exactly, and they're just more so on the hexes. So going into the app might actually figure out where there's not coverage, and then you could reassert to that point that's a little bit closer to that, or in the next hex over, if that works. Or if you've got a little bit bigger property, or even if it comes down to the other side of the house is actually in the next hex, well, then maybe you could work that and try it that way. So some things to think about, but I'll have to look more into the RSSI and SNR calculations to see if those are factoring in that. That's an interesting thought. So hopefully some more people can come out that are watching the replay and can throw some ideas. So that's a continue to, like, sorry to do the YouTube thing, but like and subscribe and watch the comments for this video to, you know, build that knowledge. And we'll be asking questions back and forth. I'm sure that somebody's going to be like, well, duh, Ed, it's this, blah, 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 you know, and I'll be like, great, thanks. I've learned. So, and we've all learned. So, yeah, another reason for liking and subscribing. So that's Puny Pecan Eels situation. So let's go over to just quickly to show the dragon over there in England. Rewards are at 2.13 HNT and 90.17. You can see these values are down quite a bit. So this is from, look, we still gotten some stuff going on here. So yeah, it's still going on. All right. Now for the big announcement. So if you remember, we shipped a People's Hotspot to Australia. So this is the unveiling of that. And here it is, quick vanilla Mandrill. Now, this has an interesting thing. If you didn't know, when I sent over actually the Dragon and now the Mandrill, both of those, I didn't want to mess with any of the, like, I didn't know if there was electrical things. And actually with the Mandrill, I even contacted somebody from Rack and asked them this, but they answered well after I shipped it. So I just took the safest thing and just shipped it without adding it to my wallet. That's right. I did a completely crazy thing, and I shipped a miner and trusted somebody that I didn't know all the way across the world. So this is an awesome experiment. I don't know, like, you look them up and you say, oh, have they been, participating on the Discord and in the community, in a great way. And yeah, so the trust is there, and we've had a few conversations since, and some stuff happened that they weren't able to get to it right away. But they're going to be transferring this, because you actually, when you do a transfer hotspot, you actually have to wait for the first, I believe it has to have full sync, and then it has to admit its first beacon. So we had to wait, whatever it was, those days, to get our first beacon. And then we had the problems with the network. And so that's what's going to be happening with that. Over the course of this week, hopefully we'll get that transferred over to the People's Hotspot wallet. And that is a thing, is like, if you didn't know, maybe this isn't doxing it for me, but it's like for the People's Hotspot, you can come in here and know exactly what the balance is in each wallet, and all of the hotspots that are part of the People's Hotspot. And you can see Fundy Gray Seal is offline right now. You see the other two are going, but yeah, you just come in here right below the miner name, and it says owned by, and then you click on the thing there, and you can see 95 HNT right now. Now, the last host of the EEL hasn't gotten paid yet. So, and it's their request that I said, give me, and I work with each host on their own terms. So they did not want to get paid weekly. So right now I'm in custody of their earnings, but it's all good. They're like, oh no, I totally trust you. It's all good. I'll get you a wallet. So I've been waiting for a wallet from them to transfer into, and a lot of them will use a burner wallet so that it's just a safer way, and then they go through the obfuscation techniques of moving it to the exchanges and stuff to move it to their home wallet. And I don't want to know all that information anyways. This is the part of the program that I really enjoy, and getting them their miner early. So you can follow along. You can see all of the transactions, and when I paid everybody and what earnings there were. You can see all of that going on. Asserting of locations. This is one of the nice things about the transparency of this, is like, if you ever have any doubts to the calculations that I used or whatever in the payments, you can verify it here. So that's the nice part about this, from owning a tiny fleet, if you will, for the People's Hotspot. So that is that. Oh, here is the another shout out for Helium Sitebot. If you don't use this, definitely check this out. You can come up here and you type in your name up here, and then you can favorite it. And if you have one email right now, you can get basically their pro version of monitoring for one email to one miner. So you could come in here and hit favorite on this, and then basically you can set up a monitoring so that you can get emailed whenever the hotspot, or basically if it's down, then it would email you I think it's like every 30 minutes or something like that, until it gets back up. But you can see the earnings from the very first day that the Dragon started earning and where they've been. And you can see it's been very lumpy, and they really haven't changed their setup, I don't think, too much. And so you can see that this is just another thing. In fact, the CEO Helium just wishes that people would understand that earnings fluctuate. And he said multiple times, I would pay somebody to just keep repeating that earnings fluctuate. And like to say that this should come with a big old banner that says this is normal. And so it's just frustrating because we're trying to make fine tuning in our placements and stuff. And so that's where I like discovery mode, because here we were able to, see this 0 down here and like, what the heck is going on? And we ran discovery mode and we're like, no, it's actually not. It's the network. The network is having some issues here. Not us. We're doing our part. And so hopefully when validators come, you're going to see these. I think that you'll still see fluctuations, but, I have some maybe more intelligent theories, but then also some more conspiracy level theories about like why the earnings fluctuate as well. But there's some completely normal fluctuations like weather. I think I have pretty good data now to suggest that when it's overcast, earnings are better. In fact, the host of the Dragon has also agreed with this, is that earnings are better. These peaks happen when they're on cloudy days. Now, I could be totally wrong in that, and you could call me out and we could compare data and say, oh, I guess I was wrong. So I don't mind that at all. So, all right. So that's it for the People's Hotspot. Okay. So on to some think tank and some speculations. Oh, let me switch over to just my face here. All right. So I showed a couple weeks back that I got a Helium dev kit and wanted to experiment with that. And actually, I just saw a question in the chat that's super easy to answer. How do you add a second miner to your wallet in the Helium app? So there's a big plus button right at the top. You just open your app and then you can hit the plus button. Now, some people prefer to have one miner to one wallet, because if you add all your miners to one wallet, then you have all your chickens in one basket, and there's just some reasons to protect yourself. So a lot of people will just make that decision of one wallet to one miner. So here, because it's very easy and the nature is to be transparent, then we'll that's why I have it all in there, so that we can talk through examples like this together. So yeah, super easy. Just add go through the standard way that you added your first miner and then add in another one. So it's a very easy question. So, all right, back to the fun topic here. So making lots of noise here. I got the Helium dev kit and have started experimenting, and I didn't get too far. I built these. So one thing to understand about these has all the antennas. So there comes a set of antennas with this, and you can see that this one has 2 antennas with it, and then this one has 3, and then it comes with 2 USB cords to connect everything up. Now let me just put one down. Maybe I'll just go with the more complicated one. So this one is I've got it loaded, and I looked at the documentation, and it didn't come with any documentation that I could find on the packaging. So it would have been very helpful to have a little note in there about where to find the GitHub repo or whatever to get the location for the documentation. But I just found out through actually watching other YouTuber's video on it. And I should give him a shout out, because that was very helpful. Once I knew that, I'm like, oh, okay, great. Now I know the location, and they actually did the IDE in there too. And once I got to the documentation on GitHub, then I could figure out, oh, that this was the IDE I needed. So yeah, I don't know. Well, but thank you, unspoken for YouTuber, for helping me out there. You didn't even know it. But yeah, so this is loaded with, let's see if I can get this correct here. I apologize. I get the is not wanting to focus. There we go. So you can see that on top here, right where it says GPS antenna, that is the GPS sensor right there. And then you can see the antenna for the GPS right there. And then We have this, I believe this is the LoRa antenna. So everybody, when you're connecting your miners, if you ever opened up your miner, you'll see that it's actually going to this LoRa chip right here. And just little tiny thing. And it's funny that our big DBI antennas are connected to this thing by their means. And then over here, over here is a Bluetooth antenna. And I just loaded all this up to just kind of have fun with it. And I haven't even turned it on yet to experiment with. And then at the bottom, there's actually 2 slots where the GPS chip is right here. And the GPS chip has to take up the 2 slots. And then you, I guess it has to be in slot A, at least per the documentation. And then there's 2 more slots on the bottom side, so you can load up chips on those. And so the sensors come with the Helium dev kit, and you can experiment with whatever sensors that you want to load on there. So I have the temp and humidity sensor and then an environmental sensor on here. Bluetooth antenna on the bottom. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm reading some comments along here while I'm going. I want to make sure that I'm saying things right. So I haven't figured out how to all load things on here. There are some more components that you can load on there, but for my little testing, this is all I was going to play with for right now. Now I went to go do the actual development for it, and well, I wanted to do some more research on it. So I got the GitHub repo on there and then downloaded that, and ran into a problem because one of the sensors that I'm particularly interested in, it was not there in the documentation. So I went and created an issue in their GitHub repository for it. So I wanted to show off one more time the other sensor that I have. So this is the other one that just has the LoRa antenna and the Bluetooth antenna on there. And then as far as the other sensors, I have a 3-axis. So I think that's like a G-force type of thing, or a rotational sensor, I think. I could be totally wrong on that, but I think that's what's right. And then a light sensor on there as well. And then on the bottom side, I have a pressure sensor. So that is this sensor. So I just wanted to load up both of them because I could. It was unfortunate because the application that I was thinking of for this, I wanted them all to be on the same board. So who knows, maybe they'll come out with a little bit bigger one if they get enough demand. But I think the intention really of this like small packaging and with the tiny sensors is that you can get your cost points down as low as possible for the application that you're going to deal with. So this is a perfect little dev kit, and I'm sure that then they could, you can do your deving with this, but then get a ultimately cheaper solution for customers to buy. So imagine like you could do your dev with this and then create a sensor, an application for a sensor, and then send it to Rack, and then they'll load it, and then say 1 million people buy it, and you get 10% earnings on it, or whatever the cut is, 50%. I have no idea what it is, but then you'd be able to manufacture these and have a manufacturer lined up to manufacture all your devices. And then they just throw the code on there and you're good to go. So that's interesting to me. I was thinking about that from an economics perspective and another way to make money. So so that said, because I was looking into the documentation on this, I didn't get a chance to actually fire up the IDE. I mean, I turned it on, but I didn't even connect it to my computer yet. So I haven't done any development. So that's what I'm looking forward to in the next week or so, or maybe even today yet. I'll get back to it. Okay, so I'll show off my little GitHub repo thing here. So this was the particular sensor I was interested in. And so I just created an issue for this and said, hey, there's underload examples on this file. There's a reference to it, and I can't get to it. And you can see that there's no folder at the place in the repo. So I just said, hey, add those files, and so they did. It was only a few hours later, I think, that they implemented this. So yeah, so I did my part. I didn't write any code, but I sure created an issue, which is actually what I do for sometimes for work. Odd markdown thing right there. I don't know why that one came through and this one did not. Oh well. So yeah. Oh yeah. So next thing. So I received a request to cover this. So we're just going to. This is interesting. So if I look at the map, and most maybe I should zoom back out just for context state. Yeah, if we look over, I don't know, in Europe or something like that, and we start looking at these, various clusters, and you can see that, I mean, they seem pretty normal, I guess. And you really don't see what's abnormal until you see what's normal. I mean, here's Brussels. Shout out to their amazing beer. I've been there and really liked their beer. Anyways, but you can see that, I mean, it seems pretty normal, networks that are being developed here, kind of organic. Even in the US, you go out to the kind of the early parts of the network, or where it's still growing, even in Wichita here. I mean, that seems pretty normal. Some things are closer together, some aren't, that looks pretty normal. But you come over here to China and zoom in on Hong Kong, and something weird comes up. So these clusters it just seems really weird. Now, maybe someone's like, nope, these are the parts where I want them, and they got them in the exact places. Because you go in here and you click on them, and they do have witnesses that are, oh, this one doesn't. So, but it is synced, and yet, I don't know. Like some of these clusters are actually communicating with each other, that I've checked, and it appeared legit. So it's like, what's going on here? Like, this is an interesting conundrum. And I think that the answer really is it's probably, you can assert these locations wherever you want. So these clusters could be in the States for all we know. They could be in Europe for all we know. We just don't know. And maybe some IP looking up would help understand this information. Or some pinging from, what is it, Helium Hiker or something like that can help with that. But anyways, it just looks funny. And so I think by and large, the validators are intended to help with this. And I think it's nice and the problem that they talked about early on in the podcast, the Hotspot podcast, they talked about having these golden gateways, where you're like, well, this one is a trusted one. We always know that this one's going to have good coverage, So for instance, like it's kind of the white hat perspective, is that like, oh, we trust Ed. Ed always is going to have phenomenal installs, or at least to the best of his abilities. He's always going to follow the rules. Ed is always going to follow the rules. And so therefore we can declare Ed's gateway a golden gateway. And then it can always be used to verify coverage, and also to basically penalize others who are not playing part of it. And so that might have been an idea, and it might still be an idea. I don't know. And maybe I don't know. There's a lot here that's like borderline, like, well, we are in the think tank and speculation. So this is where those, legit theories to conspiracy theories exist. And so I don't know with this. It's interesting, at least to say. I mean, these look more planned and picked than anything. Just very perfect spacing between all of them. So that's what makes me think that something weird is going on there. And I'm sure the Helium team has known about this for a long time, and they saw it way before any of us did. But I'm looking forward to seeing this clear up, and if it's legit, great. I'm not trying to point any fingers here, but it's interesting to say the least. So I thought I'd bring it up. So I was going to get into some other interesting parts as well, as far as what I can other things I've seen on this is, so I'm going to go back to the kind of the interesting example of RevoFi. So they're like cross-chain miners, like they're miners, but they're doing something else in addition. So we kind of have the Helium part, which is like FreedomFi, is HNT, but then they're adding 5G coverage. Well, now RevoFi has this other coverage, and what does it do? And I couldn't get much more examples on that. But another example that I've seen is this Sentinel, and I'm going to show that on Twitter. So I saw this tweet on Twitter because somebody was like, actually like, oh, this is better than Helium or something, or it's going to knock the socks off Helium or something like that. And I was like, whoa, interesting tweet. Let me read into this. And so the best I could come up with is that this does some sort of VPN, but it's distributed. So you'd be able to kind of connect from anywhere. And then like basically from the user standpoint, basically I could surf the internet from anywhere. And then from my standpoint, if I had one of these devices at home, I would be offering part of my bandwidth to you. So, or, anybody else that could surf on this. And there was some really interesting information about that. Oh man. And yet again, I think I lost my tab on this. Here, I'll just open up a new one. So this one was interesting. The most interesting question was, what are the risks of running an exit node? Is there any legal liability for hosting a node in the United States? And so you come down here and, yep, I've received around 50 DMCA infringement notices, 20 abuse complaints, and 0 visits from the Fed. Okay, interesting. It's interesting to just see what's out in this decentralized world and what's going on. And see the other things that are playing in the space. Now I realize I'm mostly on Helium, so this is a little bit outside, but they took a shot at Helium. So I was like, oh, okay, interesting. All right, so that's that. Yeah, I'm on Twitter a lot. That's where I get a lot of my information. I like it because it's the realest, truest information, and it's the most realist false information ever. So you get the best of both worlds. So kind of got to figure out what is truth in there. And I like that question anyway. So so the next part is the next thing is Akash, and I don't even have the website pulled up here, but Akash has a super mini node. And if you've been watching the Helium headlines at all on their Twitter account, they have actually had an example of this actually running a Helium validator. So that's the example there for how to build a Helium validator on Akash. That was kind of interesting as well. So all this to say is like there's a lot here that is like we're just at the tip of the iceberg. I think maybe not even to the tip of the iceberg. I think by and large we're heading to a place of passive income where your closet will effectively earn you money. Ultimately, you'll have this bit of rack space that you'll kind of tend to, and it will reward you. I've heard of other ideas where like it's almost like your garage or your driveway will be rented out to autonomous vehicles, and that they'll come and get a charge from you, and then also at some point start mining crypto while they aren't in use, and maybe it's even at off-peak hours, so it's the least amount of money, but it's still getting what it needs. So it's interesting of like how many more ideas are there in this decentralized space, and that like you can actually monetize your closet or part of your closet or a basement or whatever. As long as you can get that connectivity installed. So, and imagine what could be done, in a world where there is space to do this, and maybe the economic situation is not as great. So space is at a premium, but if you could have this small, tiny device that helps you earn crypto, or that you can turn into fiat if you choose, well then that's really cool. So yeah, so that's another thing that has been interesting. I realize that's think tank and speculations is kind of what's out there, and I won't probably venture out in this space too much unless there's some feedback on it. They're like, hey, I really like that stuff. Let's have more of it. So if you got any feedback on that, or if you think any of these projects are crap, let me know too. I appreciate the comments. All right. Next, what has been creating the most buzz of late? And that has been staking. So since mainnet announced, there's been a lot of questions. I've seen another YouTuber going and asking the same set of questions. I actually want to I think drop him an HNT just for you already asked the questions that I was going to ask, so just give me give me your chart so I can go over it in mine. I'll just probably put a shout out to him in that and say, hey, watch this video. Anyways, so let's go over these providers real quick. We have Argon. And Argon has no, and really the first pass I'm going to make here is basically partial staking or not. And really is basically, do you need to have the 10,000 HNT or do you not? I believe that most of the people following my channel would not have a full stake at this. So basically that's what I'm running through. So if you, but if you have some of these that you would like to kind of throw your support behind, put them in the comments. I'm sure that if I was working for one of these people, or I was one of these people operating these validators or the staking services, that I would want you to kind of show my skills as much as possible. So, and that helps establish trust in the network too. So, we all have some HNT that we would like to, if we make that decision to stake, then it would help to know where to stake it. So I'm going to throw out all of these and then let kind of the whole situation stew and get the results out of that. So please feel free to drop comments on who you're using as a staking service, or if you want to do that semi-anonymously, send me the information on Discord, and then I will share that in a future video. Maybe I'll do like a chart of like, oh, out of the 10 people that reached out at me, 8 are using so-and-so and 2 are using so-and-so. I don't know. But I'll figure out a way to anonymize that feedback as we go forward. So let's go. So Argon is not doing partial staking. And there's usually, as you look through these, they're going to give some information on their costs and stuff as they do this. So let's see here. Next one that I came across is Bison Trails, and they are also doing, lost my train of thought here. They're doing full, you have to have a full node on there. So that is the thing. So no partial staking there. Helium Rising is the next one. And they have, like you can see here, new registrations are closed until after mainnet launch. And so they're actually, if you dig into it, it's actually a month afterwards. So it's about a month right now until Helium Rising will open up. And there's, I don't know if they have the chart on here. Others do. But not this one. So one of the ones has like the return on investment. And so practically speaking, the more validators there are at this point, there was a minimum, which was 100. And now every validator that's added after this point dilutes the whole earnings of that 6% earnings across the whole pool. So now everybody on these wants to protect their investment and earn, especially before the halving. So you can see that they're basically trying to winnow back who participates, and it's to the interest of the people that are there, that are playing a part in this, and also like for anybody on the fringes or that isn't in yet, is kind of penalized too, because it frustrates. Like is it worth it? So, and then you're locking up these funds for, I think it's 5 months in a lot of places. So that can be frustrating as well. So something to think about in there. All right, next one is helium staking. So, and here they have some of these websites are really cool. They show actually how many validators they have, and so where the pool is at and all that kind of stuff. So that's really interesting. This appears to do partial staking. So in fact, there is a join here and such. So Next one is Helium BX host. And I apologize if I'm getting these names wrong, but just another one out there that kind of puts all the things, and they do have shared node staking. So there's, oh my gosh, so there's partial staking, shared node staking, and pooling are the kind of the terms that I've heard. And of course there's full, and so full basically is the 10,000 HNT that's required. So a lot of these have you know, that difference on there that you want to like dig into it. And if you really want to make the best decision out of this, I think by and large you're gonna make some money. You're gonna make you're gonna make some HNT, and how much is it? You know, it plays onto the max formula that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. So there's another one. Oh, and this one actually had a, I think it was Helium validators. Nope. I think I missed one. So Helium validators, let me open up that one again because I don't want to miss it. Where's my link? There it is. There we go. HNT validators, that's the name. So this is another one. And they even had a YouTube. I don't know if this is their YouTube or not, but. And then there's HNT. Oh, sorry, the Helium validators doesn't do partial staking. And then there's Stake My HNT. Oh, there was. Stake My HNT does not do partial staking. So there's some interesting information why as you hear, and they like, I'm just going to scroll down to the TLDR on this, is that they are no longer offering partial staking services due to compliance and upcoming protocol developments. When we gain partial staking capabilities, you will be the first to know. We invite you to contact us if you have 10,000 HNT, and we'll get you set up with a full node before mainnet launch. So the interesting answer here is that there were two answers. So one is tied up in the governance. And so when you do staking, you're recognized as having some sort of voting stake, at least on other chains. And I'm still a noob in this area. So I've done a couple stakes in different crypto. But what they do is, like, when you do the stake, you get to have some sort of voting proxy if they have the governance by that. And so, or if they choose to, and Helium chooses to. So, but there's a HIP that's in place to kind of toy with how that works. And so because of that, that makes it a harder thing to figure out. And this is like, I don't want to get into all the details, and maybe we could jump into that at some other point. But it's basically, it's very complicated to figure that out when you have whales that want to play in this space and do what they want, and then also to decentralize it so that everybody kind of gets this voice too. So it's an interesting problem to work through. And so that's one part. Well, the other part of this that they get into is, like, basically they talked to their lawyers, and their lawyers basically said you could it could amount to a felony. Like, I didn't understand all that part, and I didn't read this before the stream took place, but like, I was like, wow, that's, and maybe it wasn't in this one, but it was another, maybe another one that said that there was basically some legal reasons that they were very concerned about it as well. So I think there's a lot of KYC, know your customer. If you don't know what that term is or why, it's basically who are you and how do we prove that it's you? Because that's very important in the crypto world. So yeah, so that's another one. So no partial staking there. StakeJoy is another one, and it does not, they don't do partial staking. Interesting thing about this is that it's actually former Helium employees are here doing this. So this is interesting as well. So be interesting to talk with them and say, hey, how's this going? And all of these are on Discord, so you can reach out there. I know that some of these companies have their own Discords as well. So Vanager is the last one, and it looks like they do partial staking, so as well. So, and as well as full staking. Pretty much everyone here that I mentioned is doing full staking. That's pretty easy, but doing partial staking seems to be the conundrum at this point. One thing in there that to be aware of is the custody of the tokens. And, you know, this might be part of the legal reasons here too. But non-custodial seems to be key, is basically is like, because if you throw somebody else your crypto, that's it. You can't really get it back. It's not like you can take legal action to get it back that I know of. So because of that, as well, you want to keep that in mind, is not non-custodial is most important. So I was going to use another, regarding my own personal choice to who to stake with, I was going to use another service, but that didn't pan out. They didn't come forward with it. So then I was going to use Helium Rising, but then when I finally made that decision, because I kept holding out and for that first one to come out, and it didn't pan out. So so I was going to use Helium Rising, and they held reservations. So now I'm like, okay, well, where do I go to now? And so, some people have encouraged me, no, do your own. And so I was like, well, I don't necessarily know the code to do it. I could probably figure it out. I probably should have figured that out like a month ago, would have been good, and actually participate on testnet for quite a while. But I do have a contact that has AWS experience, and they're willing to do the coding for the validator. And they're like, I got the code, you have the audience, and some of the tokens. And so basically in that, though, we'd have to come up with all the funds pretty much. And really the only way I can think of to do that would be to custodial. And it would probably be, as talking with my contact, is that like I would have to administrate the funds, pay bills and send out payments and all that kind of stuff. And it seems really complicated, but also it might not be. And so I just threw it out one day on Twitter as far as an LFG to create a validator. And 2 people responded with interest so far. There's also interest in the Akash one, just because I think it's an interesting idea. And there's already a little guide out there for that as well. But on that, that would be an even, I think, bigger technical hurdle to overcome there. And my AWS contact would just rather knock it out on AWS. So that's where that's at. So I still haven't made a decision. So in this part, hopefully there's people out there that also have not made a decision yet about who they're going to stake with. And then by watching the stream and commenting, that they'll feel like they have a better idea of who to stake with at this point, and then reading the comments. So again, another shout out for please comment on this video and tell me who you're staking with. So, all right. Wow. That was a long presentation on the main part here. So let's see here. Questions, live Q&A. So put your questions in the chat. I'll get to them. And then feel free to encourage me to keep me moving along by saying next, please. So I'm going to look back over the questions here. I see, can you SSH into your hotspot and install additional programs? I don't think so. I think the SSH keys are locked by Helium, so I don't think that you can do that. I'm not sure. So, do I know anything about the rumor that the deeper network mini devices will be able to mine Helium? I've never heard of those. So I'd have to research on that as well. So I see lots of hellos. Hey, the pickle. Thanks for making it. I appreciate you jumping in here. how would they enforce? Oh, I think this was back to the clusters in China. I see another comment. Look at Bahrain near Dubai. So there's some interesting, I assume, clusters happening there too. Do I have information when Syncrobit will start shipping? Go back to the more so beginning of the podcast, and I talk about Syncrobit a little bit. I don't have any insider information on that specifically, but it sounded like they would come or ship out soon. I think the FCC approval was in 7 to 10 days. So they're chomping at the bit there. Earning rate down. I'm a bit over 50%. Yeah, my earnings have really sucked. And on my main, so I had my main hotspot, which was just cranking. It's been cranking since last fall. And well, I should say my location has been cranking since last fall. And then over the last couple days with the network having issues, now all of a sudden I saw that flip. And I have some hosts that are in rural areas, and their hotspots, even though they're spaced very well, and you know, most of them have external enclosures. There is one, and I tweeted about this. There's one that was just kind of an extra that they're like, oh, can I get a miner too? And so I was like, well, I don't have any more enclosures to put this outside. So they just put it on their windowsill, and that little sucker has been cranking out almost the most HNT. So I went around and set up all these other hotspots with external enclosures, and that one is just sitting back, like making the most. And so it makes me angry every single time I see that, but also very happy. So that's pretty funny. So, but yeah, their earnings for the first time actually outperformed my main hotspot that has had the best coverage. So kind of frustrating. I don't know what's happening there. And so that actually there's kind of maybe relation or correlation back to the situation with Puny Pecan Eel, that maybe there's something going on there. I know that there's been more hotspots closer to me, but not anything that would violate that range and or my hex. So I don't know what's wrong there. So that has been interesting. All right. 619, thank you for answering that question. I think that was about the deeper network. So yeah, I'm as far as more miners, I think I have 1 or 2 more coming from Nebra, and then I think that's it, unless I'm getting any more demo units. I've reached out to a couple, Syncrobit being one of them, but I understand that the frustration has been so high there with waiting for those that that I think they're just preferring to send it out to the customers who've been in wait. And I remember my frustration, you know, back in December when Rack had everything delayed, or CalChip, or, you know, that whole situation. And so, you know, yeah, I can kind of understand, well, why should some YouTuber who has already had a network and building their own, you know, network of hosts and stuff get those miners? And that's a tough one. I understand that, because in part, yeah, I want to demo these units and, like, you know, bang on them a bit to see how they perform, you know, the kinks, share anything that I can out of them. And on the other hand, it's, you know, these customers are waiting, and that's frustrating for them to have to wait. So some YouTuber can do that. So I did throw out, I'm like, hey, if you want to just send it to me, I can send it along. I can do my testing and then send it along to someone actually in the queue. And that is kind of playing in part with why I did the people's hotspot the way I did. So, yeah. Yeah, one comment on Sentinel. I'm not looking into Sentinel. Like, I want to be very careful with my language here. Is like, I just saw it on Twitter. I see a lot of things on Twitter, and I'll go click a link and like look into it a little bit, but I'm not like seriously looking into it at this point. Like, that scale probably tips more as far as like things outside of Helium. maybe a little more interested in Akash. Like there was some really kind of interesting things around that was like, oh, WordPress blogs could be ran on Akash. I'm like, that's a simple use case. That's cheap. That would be really easy hosting, so something like that would be really interesting use case for Akash. But there's a lot of sketchy stuff out there and things. So I want to be careful and sensitive to that as well. But I don't know. I go back to these sensors. Like this is practical application here. So that's why I like this. That's why I like Helium, is that this is the LoRa side of Helium so far. So does the 300 meters matter if your miners are in different hexagon? That might be an interesting one to relate to the SNR and RSSI values. So I know that if they're too close, then that will hit and affect potential earnings. I know you can get invalid witnesses all the time, despite what hex you're in, and I think that might lend into that. So, good question there. So, so the pickle was talking about as far as earnings. There are 2 times the amount of miners online since we started. Yes, and that's continually happening. The network has probably tripled in size since I started. So in that, you got to remember that growing by 2 or 3 times, doesn't always equal a half or a third of earnings, because the top, if you think about it, it's kind of like a return on investment type of thing, or an apex, is like those earnings, like I think it's like the top 10%. And I'm going back more than a few months, probably back to that March timeframe. I think I heard this, is that only that top 10% or maybe 20% were actually making above 20 HNT a month. And again, that's going to sound absolutely crazy, in a few months' time, but that was that basically only a few amount of people were actually had those primo mining setups and were making that. And by and large, for most of that, I was hosting a miner, so I wasn't even getting the full cut of that. So I don't even want to think about the HNT that I missed out on, but the hosting company is definitely laughing their way to the bank on that one. So it's okay. It's all right. So we're going to hit the halving soon here too. And I won't speculate on price, because if anything, we've seen that all the speculation, it's really tough to go onto Twitter right now and see people show projects, because there's a whole lot of misinformation going around, and oh, candles this way, and it's just, there's so much information out there that it's just kind of how do you actually make figure out what the truth is, and that, and of course it's going back and studying up, doing your own research, right, like they always say. So thanks, Joe, for answering that question. Yes, 300 meters will affect it as well. So, will Freedom 5G have many legal requirements for uptime redundancy? I am not sure on that. I don't think so. I mean, legal requirements in that there might be something for local ordinances, like if you put up your own antenna tower or something like that. There's a borderline area in there that I've talked about a number of times about wireless communications, and that's on some cities' bylaws or whatever, not bylaws, ordinances that you might have to deal with. So that might be the legal things you have to run into. As far as uptime for that, the radios, I know that those cost a lot, but as far as I don't know if there's licenses that you'd have to procure to do that. I just don't have enough information on that. We're going to need some more information for sure. And when I do find that out, I will share that. So, Yeah, Pickle, I'm down below 10 and like between 5 and 10 on my main primo spot. I'm bummed. I'm crying. So, yeah. Second miner by the halving. So yay. Yeah, it's tough to for the network to grow 2 to 3 times in size and then have the halving coming up. Then you're trying to think about how many it is to get the same amount, and you have to almost deploy like shoot, by that time about 10 times. Like you almost need like 10 miners to make up what you would have made with one at the beginning. Um, so yeah, Hick Viz asks the ultimate question. If you were getting in this now, based on the halving, would you still buy a hotspot miner or wait and buy the cheaper light hotspot? That's the question. And we can speculate all we want about this. And I think that, and this relates to back to, I think some of the referrals that I've seen, just referrals have taken the tank, which is tough. Cause that was very nice to get all the referrals going. And then now it's like, I think that question perfectly hits the zone that everybody is in right now, is we don't know what to do regarding this. Do we wait and buy the cheaper light hotspot, or do we go ahead and put in a gateway or with a full gateway, and knowing that everything's pretty much going to function as a light hotspot as well? That is just a tough one. That is a tough one to run into. And I can't, you got to make your own decision in that. Cause it's a bet. And I think that the key choice, and I will shield this book. Here we go. Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. Annie Duke went and got her PhD in, I can't remember what it is now offhand, but she says, she went and played blackjack and, poker. And she made millions of dollars in poker. And she had multiple mentors and all that kind of stuff. And she said that whenever she was talking with her mentors, they made it a rule, a very clear rule, that they didn't talk about whether it was whether they won the hand or they didn't, because it was all about what information do we have at that time to make the best decision. And so that goes back to, do we get the hotspot miner or do we wait and buy the cheaper light hotspot? It's what information is available to us at this point. And I'm looking at that spreadsheet of the light hotspots and going through qualifications with the manufacturers and such, and I'm not seeing the progress there. So that would indicate to me, buy a miner, buy a Bobcat, whatever's in the queue for that we covered at the beginning of the show. And that's that's the information that I have right now. But of course, different information changes. And so once it comes up to the 28th, I think the next time that they approve it, maybe it'll change next month. But right now, which is tough because you're still looking at like October delivery point times at this point, which is well after the halving, well after all these things are made. So I think that the quickest turn of a dime that you would get is there. And I think that all of this will come to an apex, and that you'll see hotspot price crash. And once that, like all of that stuff, and again, this is pure speculation, not the financial advisor, all that junk. But I think you're going to see some interesting movements as far as hotspot price, HNT price, and then more manufacturer ability or availability of HNT miners. So I think that that's all swirling around, and what are the answers as far as what's going up and what's going down and what's going to be the best decision? I don't know. It's just, there's the context. You got to make the best decision. I hope that and I've said this a number of times in my podcasts, in my videos, that I hope that I give you enough information to make your own decision on what you do. And if you want to talk about that, other criteria that I may have missed, dude, throw them in the comments. I would love to see it and read it for myself as well, if you've got some speculation or thoughts that you think I left out. So the earlier question about 5G said that they heard that 5G could provide 911 service, that you may be required to have a ton of redundancy. That's interesting. That's interesting. If there was a mandate there, I think it would go back to coverage. Like, if that's interesting. I don't know if 911 coverage is paired to 5G. Because I mean, if we go back to the time without cell phones, if I didn't have a cell phone signal at all, I couldn't dial 911. So that's interesting. So. Maybe back to my earlier about the miners and stuff. If we would have known last December that we could have just bought HNT and then the price would have gone up, that would have been a good one to maybe spend some funds on and then see what happens later and then pay the primo price for availability. But again, it's all speculation. You don't know where that price is going to go. So none of my hotspots have earned data credit. Well, go out and get a mapper. Go out and get a temp sensor. Those things have that I talked about it in the last I keep saying podcast, the last live stream about having those at one of the fleet owners puts one at each location just as another way to ensure. Like we have all the the downtime that we've had recently, that would have instantly given the answer, and it's a very cheap answer as to if the hotspot is still working, because those data credits are still being used. So yeah. All right. With validators online now, are the light hotspots all you need? So the validators aren't online yet. Mainnet is up. So I think I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think that they're basically having both systems running at the same time. They already hit the number of validators that they need, but they want to make sure that everything is parity. If I'm wrong in that, definitely call me out. But I think both systems are running side by side such that you're verifying parity across the network, that basically as soon as then we cross over that bridge, then we'll be fully on mainnet. And so I think that that's what they said, is that it'll be a little bit longer, like another week or two, and then we'll be fully on validators is my understanding at this time. Oh, haven't seen any data credits in the UK. I'm sure that there have been. I swear I've seen our host even of the Dragon report back that there has been data credits even out their part. Excuse me, out in their way. So I could be wrong in that though. But just checking some more comments here. Hey, James. All right. Wow. We went for an hour and 22 minutes. No wonder I'm parched again. Wow. That is just very, very fun. Thanks all for hanging out so long. I've seen attendances dipped, especially towards the tail end of the validators. So, but it came back up. So thank you for sticking with me for an hour and 23 minutes. But I think we're going to close up shop here as I bring up my closing notes here. I'm still watching for questions too, but seeing no questions. All right, we're going to close up shop here. Oh, sorry. One more question came up. If I covered this before, but how much energy does the helium miner consume in terms of watt amps? So I think it was below 5 watts. I do need a beer on hand. I actually have water, and actually I will. Thank you. I do need a beer. 5 watts, yes. So 5, and the forecasting that I've heard even with that is that even I think on our full miners, somebody correct me on this, but I think the full miners will even go down in power usage once validators are completely live. And then also, but light hotspots will require even less power as well. I think it was like the speculation that I heard was around 2 or 3 watts, something like that. So once we get up to that point, like there was even more excitement about solar setups and such being being used to power these connections. So anyways, all right, we're going to call it there. So thank you all for your questions and great support of the People's Network. And I'd like to encourage you to get involved, answer the questions, that others are asking on the channel. Get on the Helium Discord, please, please, please. I hope that you're on there. You can definitely chat me up sometime. And of course, I always take feedback about the stream in the comments. What did you like? What did you not like? And then of course, any suggestions, topics that you want me to cover. So thanks again for watching. Of course, like and subscribe, share with your friends, and I always try and share as many links as I can in the show notes afterwards or in the description. So always check the description and also the first comment if there's a pinned comment. So that will, and then I also have a playlist on there too on my Helium channel or my YouTube channel, and then it's called Helium Network Course, and you can watch the whole thing. That's all the information that's great to send to your friends that you're trying to get, or if you're trying to get somebody to host and they want to learn more about the Helium Network. And always want to talk about those referral links. Click on them, please. They help. They seriously do. I appreciate it. All of the attendance and all the questions. So thank you very much for your time and sticking with me. It's been a great show. Thank you for all the participation. We'll see you next time. Until next time, peace.